Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's invocation is being offered by Jeannie Alexander, prison chaplain at Riverbend Maximum Security. She is the guest of Councilman Jason Holloman.
Let us pray. O God, creator of the universe, we come before you now as women and men dedicated to the service of our community and the well-being of this city. Dear God, I ask that you give those gathered sound minds and open hearts to discern what is best for the common good and to act accordingly. Protect us from our egos, pettiness, factions, and personal desires for power that would rend sound government and the sacred caretaking of creation. Give us eyes to see beyond our personal biases and boundaries, lips to speak truth at all cost, hearts that desire justice, and ears to hear the cries of the voiceless and the powerful with equal concern. Let us hold fast to those most sacred and sound democratic principles of a just society, that being the common good for all held in cooperative endeavor. And, O God, help us to embrace humility as we aspire to greatness and virtue in our society. We ask this in the Creator's name. Amen.
Without objection, we will suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of the members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes of our November 20th meeting? We have a motion and a second. If there are no objections, the minutes will stand approved as written. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
There are no messages from the mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilman Stein, do you have a presentation?
Members of the council, tonight we honor Judge Betty Adams Green for her distinguished service. Judge Green? We have joining us tonight for this honor are both the current juvenile court clerk, Mr. David Smith, and Judge Sophia Crawford, and a legion of folks that are here. And I would just sort of ask you so everyone can know who is here. If you are here to help us honor Judge Green, would you please stand with me from where you are? Thank you. Members of the council, members of the community, this resolution honors Judge Betty Adams Green for her distinguished service as juvenile judge for the last 14 years. Whereas she has retired as Davidson County Juvenile Judge after serving with distinction since 1998, and whereas Judge Green focused her professional career on behalf of youth and the juvenile justice system on the state and local levels, and whereas Judge Green was the leader responsible for organizing and establishing the Tennessee Department of Youth Development and served as its first commissioner from 1989 to 1995, and whereas she has been a leader in numerous national and state organizations, such as the American Correctional Association, Council of Juvenile Correctional Administrators, Tennessee Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, and the Tennessee Supreme Court's Improvement Commission. And whereas her many accomplishments have been acknowledged with a numerous awards. Among these are the Tennessee's Best Juvenile Judge for 2012, the Distinguished Service Award, both from the Tennessee Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, the Charles Trauger Award, NJDA's Member of the Year Award, and the ERCAS Congressional Achievement Award, amongst many others. And whereas Judge Green has dedicated her life and work to improving the lives of children, youth, and families throughout our city and state, and has ministered our court as a national model court through the National Council of Juvenile and Family Courts, and whereas her leadership was instrumental in transitioning our juvenile court to the one family, one judge court docketing model and the creation of Tennessee's first child support docket focused on children in foster care, and whereas during the May 2010 flood and the resulting displacement of all juvenile court operations from the Juvenile Justice Center, the court missed only one day of operation under Judge Green's leadership. whereas it's fitting and proper that this council recognize her and wishes her the best in all her future endeavors. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we go on record as honoring Judge Betty Adams Green for her distinguished service as juvenile judge over the last 14 years and for all she has done for the youth and families of our city and our state.
Thank you. I really would like to take credit for all of that, but as all of you know, no one is successful in isolation. It takes a large group of people around you to make anything work, and that is especially true with something like the juvenile court. We have been fortunate to have the support of neighborhoods, churches, police department, schools, teachers. Particularly, I want to thank the staff. I don't know if you know it or not, but you have one of the best juvenile court staffs, not just in the state of Tennessee, but in the entire United States. And I've done evaluations of a lot of them, and I would never have traded this staff for the others. I think the old proverb is true. It does take a village to raise a child. I want you to know how much I sincerely appreciate the support of this council. And I'm not simply talking about the budget, although Lord knows that's important. I'm talking about the moral support and the philosophical support and the fact that I think you get it. I think you understand why there's a juvenile court and how important it is. I hope that that same support, both from you and from our community, will surround Judge Crawford as she begins her tenure. And you know, I really think it will. Thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This is a resolution recognizing the Nashville Municipal Auditorium's 50th anniversary. I'm going to ask Mr. Sconey to come forward. And also your commissioner members, if they would come forward as well. Thank you so much. Whereas Nashville's Municipal Auditorium opened their doors on October the 7th, 1962, with the Church Christ Revival meeting as its first event, and since then the venue has served as a distinctive and vibrant entertainment, multi-purpose facility for Nashville and the surrounding area. And whereas for the past 50 years, the Nashville Municipal Auditorium has handled a diversity of events as it has hosted everything from concerts to circuses, auto shows to evangelical crusades and sporting events to trade shows, Whereas the Nashville Municipal Auditorium continues to serve as a multi-purpose downtown venue, hosting urban, Latin, country, and rock music events, as well as the Almena Shrine Circus, Nashville Roller Girls, Harlem Globetrotters are just to name a few. And whereas the rebranding of the Musicians Hall of Fame and the museum at Nashville Municipal Auditorium signals a new and exciting chapter in the life of the iconic Nashville institution. And whereas the Nashville Municipal Auditorium strives to make continuous improvements to its facility, whether it be repurposing an underutilized area of the building to the construction of an exhibition floor, updating the decor to renovating and making repairs to visiting an auditorium a remarkable experience. And whereas it is fitting and proper that the Metropolitan Council recognizes the 50th anniversary of the Nashville Municipal Auditorium and it celebrates this important occasion. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Council of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and the Metropolitan Council hereby goes on record recognizing the Nashville Municipal Auditorium's 50th anniversary. The Metropolitan Council is directed to prepare a copy of this resolution to be presented to Mr. Bob Sconey, the General Manager of the Nashville Municipal Auditorium, on behalf of the Metropolitan Auditorium Commission members and the Metropolitan Auditorium staff. This resolution shall take effect effect from its adoption in the welfare of the metropolitan government of the Nashville and Davidson County requiring it. I signed, Erica Gilmore. Let's give Mrs. Sconey a hand here. Mrs. Sconey, would you like to come forward?
Thank you. I'd like to introduce our chair lady, Aaliyah Armstrong, who has to say a few words too.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Council Lady Gilmore and the rest of the council. Thank you to Bob and all of the employees down at the auditorium, as well as the other commission members that were able to attend. I'm happy to report that we are operating at $260,000 up from the deficit of last year. And thank you. We are very excited about the rebranding of the facility and encourage all of you all this year to come home to the Dome. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to you once again. Let me hand you that. Good job on coming to the block. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Our agenda for elections and confirmations. Councilmember Anthony Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just had 3 confirmations to 3 different boards to run through here. First, the Rules Committee recommended Pastor William Harris, first-time appointment to the Social Services Commission at a vote of 6-4-0 against, and I would like to recommend his approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Next, the committee reappointed Mr. Dodd Galbraith to the Stormwater Management Committee at a vote of 6-4-0 against, and I'd like to move his approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Finally, to the Wastewater Hearing Authority, it was also a reappointment, Ms. Terry Kevlin. The committee voted 6-4-0 against, and I'd also like to recommend her approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing. Pastor William R. Harris, Dodd Galbraith, and Terry Kevlin. On behalf of the entire Metropolitan Council, thank you very much for your willingness to serve our great city. We're now at a resolution on public hearing. RS 2012-503 exempts Rolf and Daughters Restaurant located at 700 Taylor Street from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Bennett.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Safety approved 6-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you. Do I also need to open the... Also wanted to open the public hearing at this time.
Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in support wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Gilmore.
I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
We're now at bills on public hearing. First is 2012-291. We will move that to the hill of the agenda. Next is BL 2012-292, amends the Metro Code pertaining to recording studios as a home occupation accessory use in residential districts. Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to open the public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Does anyone in support wish to speak? Please line up at the lectern and state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Brian Cumming. I'm a musician and songwriter who moved to Nashville in 1988. I enjoy living and working in Nashville. The proposed home recording studio ordinance is a good idea for this city. There are two main reasons at stake: neighborhoods and Nashville's reputation as Music City. Every homeowner wants and deserves the right to live without noise or heavy traffic or commercial activity that disturbs the peace. Residential zoning laws are the guarantee that neighborhoods are protected from such intrusions. I appreciate and respect residential zoning laws. My experience in my neighborhood is that my studio production produces less noise or car traffic than a typical barbecue or birthday party held at another home down the street. In fact, I've never had a complaint in my 24 years of operation and have brought letters from 6 of my neighbors as evidence to reinforce that fact. As a studio owner, I can testify that technology has affected the recording process so that a typical session produces much lower sound levels than in the past. With computers, much of the work is done by sending files through the internet, which reduces car traffic. Nowadays, it's common to serve a client who's thousands of miles away, which makes the home studio as a business practically invisible. The proposed ordinance is not only consistent with residential zoning laws, but also would give both homeowners and city officials greater ability to enforce the laws by providing specific guidelines. The other thing to consider is how this ordinance reflects and honors Nashville's reputation as Music City. The fact that nationally televised Grammy nominations concert is being held tomorrow night in our new arena is only one of many signs that Nashville is a center of creative activity. It goes without saying that home studios are a widespread reality here as creative individuals collaborate, write the songs, and launch the careers that contribute to the energy that has been part of Nashville's story since long before the Grand Ole Opry started broadcasting back in 1925. Needless to say, our reputation continues to draw more creative people here, which brings more energy and prosperity to the city. As Councilmember Megan Barry has said, Nashville is a place where people come to make music, listen to music, enjoy music, and we need to create an environment here where we're welcoming all of that, promoting that creativity by allowing home-based music studios. So the proposed home studio ordinance works on both fronts. It's good for neighborhoods and it's good for Nashville. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Would you please leave your letters with Ms. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Les Kerr. I live at 8044 Settlers Way, Nashville, Tennessee. And I've lived in Nashville 25 years. I moved here for the music business, and I'm happy to say I've made a nice living at it. I'm a songwriter and a performer, not a technician or a recording artist. I don't own any recording equipment. I do own guitars, however. My wife might say I own too many of those. But honestly, besides singing and performing, what I do, I don't have any idea how they make this happen and get it to CDs or demos. Like many other songwriters and producers of music in Nashville, I need the services of home studios because for one thing, they can provide them at an affordable rate. I've used them in different areas like Green Hills, East Nashville, and West Nashville. Home studios are invaluable to those of us who create music in Music City. In most cases, small numbers of musicians are involved for demos and small recording projects, and neighbors don't even know they exist in these areas. So I would just ask you to please consider this on behalf of all of the songwriters, and I'm talking about a lot of people who just do demos with 2 or 3 instruments who never intend to make records out of these, but a lot of us do, actually. We can make small recording projects happen in these small studios, and they really make it affordable for us and convenient as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else in support wish to speak? Seeing none, does anyone in opposition wish to speak? Please come to the lectern and state your name and address.
My name is Dave Pomeroy. I'm the president of the Nashville Musicians Association and an international executive officer of the American Federation of Musicians. I know Megan Barry and Ronnie Stein personally, and I have great respect for both of them, but this bill comes as a surprise to myself and many other people who are standard bearers for the Nashville music industry. And my computer's turning off. Come back. Although I now understand there was a piece in the Tennessean a few weeks ago about this, I was out of town. I just read the piece. I just found out about this bill a few hours ago, as did my colleagues at NARIS, and we were surprised to find that no one bothered to contact the Musicians Union or NARIS the Grammy organization to solicit our input or at least discuss the tenets of the proposal. I'm sure this bill must be well-intentioned, but without the input of the Nashville music community, the possible unintended consequences may far outweigh any intended positive effects to our city and the music community. Recording studios are not a one-size-fits-all type of cottage industry. Anyone with a laptop has a recording studio. Anyone with a movie camera has a movie studio as well. There's a huge difference between casual music making and being open for business. Local 257 members include 2,500 of Nashville's finest musicians, including prominent musicians such as Vince Gill, Taylor Swift, Duane Eddy, Michael McDonald, and the Kings of Leon. Many of our members have home studios, but they are not all places of business. We processed more than $13 million in recording contracts last year, and a healthy percentage of this work, an amount that would be almost impossible to quantify, was done in home studios. I testified in front of this body in 2011 about the same subject when home studios, recording studios were lumped into a group with auto wrecking yards, massage parlors, and tattoo artists, demonstrating a fundamental misunderstanding of the realities of home recording studios. Fortunately, that bill was withdrawn. This new bill in its current form would greatly restrict the ability of musicians, songwriters, and musicians to practice their craft. As I said in 2011, home studios are the sketch pads of the Da Vinci's, the Rembrandts, and Picassos of Nashville's future. To impose arbitrary standards of size, percentage of property, and number of people allowed will be a nightmare to enforce. I do not oppose the intent of this bill, and I agree that recording studios should be legal, but in its current form, I cannot support it, and neither can my members. I look forward to the Nashville Musicians Association, NARAS, and other parts of the music industry having input in the final version of this bill if it continues its progress through the Metro Council. Thank you. Oh, I didn't say my address. Dave Pomeroy, 1813 Cedar Lane, 37212.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can email you this statement if you want it, but I don't. This has all happened in the last 90 minutes, so thank you.
Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Baird.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I just wanted to say thank you to the folks who came out today in support and also who are also here to talk about ways that we could improve the bill. I would ask that Council go ahead and pass this on second reading. This is a code issue, so we can amend it on third reading. That will allow us to take it to committee, which has not been to our committee yet, and we can have some discussion. We're in no rush. I want this bill to work for all of the council members and absolutely for the musicians in Nashville. This is intended to help the musicians. This is intended to be a positive thing. So with all of your help, and I would ask that you would move this bill tonight and we can continue to discuss it. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So could you please move the bill? Thank you.
There's a motion and a second. Councilmember Todd.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I do have some concerns about this bill. And as the speaker against it mentioned, as you know, we dealt with Mike Jamison's bill right at the end of last term, and that bill had a lot of issues with it and ultimately did not move forward. I worry that this bill...
May I remind you that this has not gone to our committees yet?
Right. Thank you, Vice Mayor. And let me finish one more sentence, and then I'm going to turn to the integrity of the public hearing, because this did come out of kind of nowhere, as the gentleman said. And I had several phone calls today from officers of the Recording Academy who had no idea about this. And as one of the speakers in favor mentioned, tomorrow night, Nashville is honored to host the Grammy nomination concert. But all of those guys that are going to be there tomorrow night doing sound, the engineers and the producers, they're down there doing sound checks right now. And I don't know how many calls I had today from people who would have loved to be part of this public hearing and talk about home studios and the problems with this bill. Just a couple of the questions that were asked to me on the phone today were things like, how do you define an employee? Most of the people that work in the music business are independent contractors. How do you define 10 people? You've got spouses, kids, people, when they come to a session, bring their kids. This statute really needs a lot of work, and there are obviously definitions and terms, and I almost think we really do need another public hearing where the actual professionals come and testify and have a chance to speak. So I think this needs to slow down a little bit, and I would move to defer it and work on the bill and then have another public hearing when the bill's in better shape. And so I move to defer.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion to defer. Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Like I said, I'm in no rush. I would just point out that this has gone to the Planning Commission. There was a public hearing at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission overwhelmingly supported it. It has been publicly noticed. I don't want there to be this perception that somehow this has come out of nowhere, because it actually hasn't. And to, anybody that looks at our agenda and any of my fellow council members, I'm always happy to talk about any bill, and I haven't actually heard from others who may have concerns. So if you have concerns, absolutely, let's talk about it. This is not a rush. I just want to make it clear that right now, it is illegal to have a home recording studio in Nashville, Tennessee, and that doesn't seem right. So what I want to do is make it right, so that when we call ourselves Music City, we mean that we support musicians. This is about musicians. So I absolutely want to support musicians, and I hope all of us do on this council. So I'm happy to slow this down. Whatever's going to make it work. Like I said, I'm in not a rush. This hasn't been rushed. So with that, I will move to defer this, and we can come back and talk about it. Of course, now that we're going to defer it, it's not going to go to our committee. Is that correct, John? So we are not going to get to talk about it, but I will do that if that's what. No, it won't go to committee.
The council can have it go to committee after the public hearing, before the second reading, if you choose. That could be part of the motion, that it be referred to the Planning and Zoning
So I need to
Committee
put that in the motion, though, because if I just defer it, it won't go.
Right.
So the motion on the floor right now, though, is Carter Todd. So can I ask you to amend that, Councilman Todd?
Thank you. I would move to defer, but go ahead and send it to the committee so we can work on the legislation.
Perfect.
We have a motion and a second to defer and refer to the committee. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2012-301, amends 4.48 acres of the Nashboro Village Plan Unit Development Overlay District for property located at Nashboro Boulevard Unnumbered, southeast corner of Nashboro Boulevard and Flint Rock Court, zoned R10, to permit an assisted independent living facility and multifamily residential townhome uses not to exceed 2 stories. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to open a public hearing.
First, we'll need to see the slides.
Okay. This is Council Bill 2012-301. This is a request to amend the Nashville Village Planned Unit Development located at the southeast corner of Nashboro Boulevard and Flint Rock Court. And the Planning Commission recommend disapproval as submitted, but approval with amendments. The current zoning is R10 with a planned unit development overlay district, which permits 144 multifamily units in 2 6-story buildings. The proposed amendment would permit assisted independent living and townhome style of multifamily units and limit the height of these buildings to 2 stories. This is the approved site plan for Site 14 of the Nashboro Village. This request is not consistent with the land use policy in place. The land use policy is suburban neighborhood maintenance. Restricting the multifamily development permitted on Site 14 to a townhouse product of not more than 2 stories in height is not in character with the overall character of development in Nashboro Village. The Nashboro Village PUD was approved for a range of housing types, including stacked flats, townhouse units, and single-family units. While 2 6-story buildings were originally approved on this site, the recently amended policy supports up to 4 stories and does not limit the type of multifamily development in this location. This is an aerial view of the property. The Planning Commission recommended a number of changes that would bring the proposed amendments into compliance with the policy. The recommended amendments are to delete the references to the 2-story height limit and replace it with 4-story height limit, delete references to townhomes, and delete the requirement that the development be consistent with the scale of development along the southeast side of Nashboro Boulevard. This is a view of the property. And the Planning Commission recommendation is to disapprove as submitted and approve with amendments.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
I'd like to move to open the public hearing.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. If anyone in support wishes to speak, please line up at the lectern. Does anyone in support wish to speak? Please state your name and address.
Thank you. Good evening, distinguished council members. I am Nigel Hodge. I live at 484 Flintlock Court, Nashville, Tennessee, 37217. I would first like to say that I have been a resident of Nashville Village for about 7 years, but I've lived in Nashville for the majority of my life. I've lived in that general area for over 20 years. So I have a unique perspective on this particular parcel. I can tell you to bring you to give you a different perspective that this is a parcel of land that many people assumed was just vacant land. There are picnic tables on the table. My dad would take my brother and I to fly our kites on this property over 20 years ago. So I just want to put that out there to understand that, so you can understand that the community has come a very long way in understanding property rights. There's been a lot of misconceptions and negative perceptions about the community. We have, again, come a long way from wanting nothing to be built on this particular parcel to understanding that the developer does have some property rights. So I want to make it clear that we're not trying to strip property rights away. All we're asking for is that as a community, we also have rights. We have the right to want something in our community that is going to fit in with the current character and nature of our community. The current character and nature of our community is 2-story townhomes along this particular parcel. That is what is consistent with our neighborhood. So again, all we're merely asking is that you support this bill without any amendments for that reason. And again, we're not asking that nothing be built. Although 99% of people in our community do not want anything built on this property, we're acknowledging that there are certain property rights, and this is a great compromise because the 2 stories would fit in with the current character of our community. So again, I would like to, again, just thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you support this bill without any amendments and that you understand not just property rights, but community rights as well. Thank you very much for your service to our great city.
Thank you. Does anyone in opposition wish to speak? Please come to the lectern. I'm sorry, you in support?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the council. My name is Human Abtai. I'm resident of Nashville Village, 924 Flintlock Place since 1985. And I thank you for the opportunity to talk about this subject. I am in support of the ordinance 2012-301 as submitted by Councilwoman Karen Johnson. I request that you support and approve the ordinance without amendment. Our community is already overcrowded and has problem with the traffic, and Vastland has been a major developer in the community, and as they have indicated, they have built 750 units in our community already. Adding another 144 units will certainly not help the situation, but we understand it if it can be with the same character as the rest of the community. We are merely requesting that this new project by Vastland be consistent with the current character and design of our community and be limited to 2-story buildings. Please approve the ordinance without any amendment. Thank you for your support and your service for our great city of Nashville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm short. My name is Elizabeth Hembry, and I live at 1151 Nashville Boulevard, which is in the Fairway Villas community. I very much would like for you to accept this bill without amendments. We have already gotten past townhomes, which will be immediately to the left side of our complex. We do not need any more apartments in this community. There's plenty of them across the road. We definitely don't need anything over 2-story. I was also on the steering committee. We worked very hard trying to work with Vastland and Mr. Renner. We would appreciate it if you would pass this with no amendments. I also have, everybody couldn't be here tonight, and I believe y'all have a copy of this. If you do not, I'm sure we can get you a copy. I have a petition here of 416 people in our community that do not want apartments. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening to me, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Travis Danker, and I reside at 849 Bishopsgate Road in Antioch, 37013. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you council members for hearing us at the public hearing this evening. I do come to you to support Bill 2012-301 without any amendments. And to kind of go over a few things, I also represent the Lakeside Villas Homeowners Association, which is immediately adjacent to the parcel in question and represents 48 homes within the Nashville community. This PUD was approved in 1979, and I can't speak personally, but I've heard things have changed between now and then, so I'll defer to my elders who know more about that time than I do. As many of the council members and those with strong ties in the Antioch community know, we are overly saturated with apartment and rental communities in our home. I mean, Councilman Dominy, Johnson, Potts, Dowell, Councilman Maynard, Councilman Tiger, we all know that Antioch has so many apartments. We have more apartments in Nashville Village than we have actual homes, condos, townhomes, or single-family homes. So the addition of more homes, more apartments within the community will just overly saturate even more. And with that, you come into question with residential and community issues such as increased crime, transient residents, all sorts of other issues that go along with apartment communities. That's not to say that apartment communities are bad or should be avoided, but this area is already hit hard enough as it was, or as it is. Bassett has characterized this as a bill as an assault against business and taking away their rights to develop this property as it was approved 30 years ago. Based on the bill in 2007 that was passed, the periodic review is permitted by the Metro Council if it's been dormant or abandoned. And that's for very good reason, because times have changed. You know, in Nashville Village, the tallest structure is 2 stories. Lakeside Villas, the community next door to the parcel, they are on the same elevation and they are at 2 stories as well. This would drastically change the landscape for that community and inhibit their overall privacy and rights in that area. I would characterize this bill more so as an evolution to current policy and current community standards versus an assault or an attack as it's been characterized. So I ask you to vote yes on Bill 2012-301 without amendments, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no one else wishing to speak in support, please line up at the lectern if you wish to speak in opposition.
Madam Chairwoman and members of the council, thank you for your time and consideration in this bill. My name is Mac McClung, and I'm a principal with Vastland. I got involved in this property in the early 90s and was asked to look at this project by the company that purchased the entire project, golf course, the 80 acres of raw land that was approved for 800 units, the shopping center site on the front where Kroger is today, the bank location, as well as the apartments. I got involved after going and visiting with the city, reviewing the PUD plans, getting letters on utilities, availability of utilities for each site, the zoning, title work, extensive list of investigative items that we needed. There's not one project in the city that I can think of that's got more than 1 or 2 pieces to it that can be developed simultaneously within 1 year that would fall within this periodic review period that would be developed today if this was enacted. I mean, there's the shopping center in the front wouldn't be there, the bank wouldn't be there, the hotel, I mean, the golf course wouldn't be there, the apartments wouldn't be there, because it's impossible to develop an 800-acre site all at one time. And during this process, you're subjected to multiple economic cycles, as we've been through in the last 40 years. So we've invested tens of millions of dollars in this project, public and private. Sidewalks, road improvements, detention ponds, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of landscaping, fences, new stone walls. The community, I must say, looks much, much better in the 10, 15 years I've been involved in it since prior to that. And I'm proud to say that. I think it looks fantastic. So it's surprising to me that we continue to come here to fight for our property rights, that we've had zoning. Technically, according to the ordinance, it has been inactive, but it certainly hasn't been inactive on the other hand because we've been developing it for 15 years. We've put in over 700 units and developed lots of different sites. You cannot do them all simultaneously. I mean, if that was the case, some of my colleagues that are running public companies wouldn't be building LifePoint hospitals, and we wouldn't be building these new corporate headquarters if you had to have something zoned and approved and then rush out and build it in 1 year. You'll never be able to plan ahead. You'll never create jobs, create more tax base or anything else. It's absolutely impossible to do. And I respectfully request that you turn this bill down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jim Spangler, and I'm a financial investor that came into this property roughly around 2 years ago with Mr. McClung. I got involved in
Could you please give your address?
I'm sorry, 698 Brass Lantern Place, Brentwood, Tennessee.
Thank you.
I got involved with Mr. McClung and Mr. Renner this summer as an investor and meeting with Ms. Johnson, her constituents, and a member of the city planning department, and they were trying to pass a piece of this legislation with new restrictions on the property that I initially just 18 months ago put a heck of a lot of money into. I looked at this piece of ground, and when Mr. McClung brought it to me, I looked at it with a couple things. First of all, it was already approved and zoned, okay? And I have background in home building and also development. So it was approved and zoned within the city for 144 units. And what brought my attention to it, it was zoned for multifamily or stacked flat condominiums, which right now is probably in most metropolitan cities a big factor that we look for as developers. So I like that piece of it. I love the location, how it sits on the lake and overseeing the golf course. And the last thing I looked at is it had water and sewer at the site. So I looked at it from an investment with my money and said, hey, this is a good, sound business decision. After attending the meeting this summer with Ms. Johnson and the constituents, I found a couple of things. They wanted to rezone the property that's been zoned for a long time. They even asked at one point if they could turn it over to a park and ask us if they would sell it to us, if we would we'd sell it back to the city if the city would come up and pay the market value on the property. This sort of threw me for a loop because we have all the intentions to develop the property as it was gained and as I came into it. I felt from the group that they felt that they were entitled to either take the property from me and Mr. McClung or to force us to develop the way that they wanted to develop. I've read and listened to articles in the past year coming from the mayor's office, coming from the Chamber of Commerce, the National Home Builders Association here located in the city, where they want more growth, they want to bring more new subdivisions, they want more new jobs to come into the city. And in fact, just this past week, the National Business Journal had 2 articles in it basically laying out the points that I just talked about with growth. And here we are tonight talking about a zone-approved piece of ground that I have an investment in and would be disastrous to what our intent of the property is zoned for and what we want to use it for. Being a developer is hard enough in today's world, okay? We spend a tremendous amount of money in getting involved, buying a raw piece of ground, spend a fortune taking it through the process with getting it engineered, working with the city's planning department, working with council and the local constituents.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay.
Thanks.
Of course, I'm going to tell you I'm vote against it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel Lewis. I live at 611 Brooksboro Terrace, Nashville, Tennessee, 37217, and would like to ask you to vote against this bill. And the main reason I oppose the bill is because of the fundamental way that it attacks property rights. America was basically founded on the idea of property rights. In the Declaration of Independence, it says that governments exist to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Some of you that have studied history may know that that's actually a paraphrase from John Locke, who originally wrote life, liberty, and property. So the very foundation of our country is protecting individual property rights. That's how we have freedom in America. And as the gentleman was just saying earlier, when investors buy property in Nashville, they have certain expectations with our rule of law that they will be able to do what the law says they are going to do. They don't expect the laws to change under their feet, like he said, so that within a year they have to, fully develop property. And as the gentleman before me was saying, if we want to draw investors to Nashville, which I think all of us want Nashville to be a prosperous city where people can enjoy freedom and prosperity, and if that's what we want in Nashville, passing laws that all of a sudden change the rules of the game in the middle of the game is not going to be a way to do that. And I think it's very disturbing, and like I said, this basically attacks, the fundamental principles upon which our country was founded, and actually even the fundamental principles upon which Tennessee was founded and Nashville was founded. Some of you may not know this, but when Nashville was founded over here at Fort Nashboro under the Cumberland Compact, there were 3 parts to the government here. There was a land office which protected property rights. There was a court system which also protected property rights, and there was a militia for the common defense. That was it. It was all about protecting property rights. So we're very much from our very beginnings here in Nashville, and like I said, the beginnings of the United States, it's about protecting property rights. And it's also important to realize that America was founded as a republic. The difference between a democracy and a republic is that in a democracy, a mob of individuals, if you will, if they happen to be able to get a majority, they can violate the rights of an individual. In a republic, you cannot do that. That's why it's important for us to preserve our Republican form of government and preserve property rights. So I would like to ask you to please vote against this bill, because it goes basically against everything upon which the United States, Tennessee, and even Nashville were founded. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, council members. Just be a moment. I live at 2604 Nashboro Boulevard, 37217. My name is Pat Williams, and I didn't expect to be up here speaking this evening. But after looking over these bills that they're going to be building in the complex, I'm pretty upset about it, because I moved in that particular complex and because of the crime rate and the traffic. And now I'm reading that they're going to build all these buildings and housing, and I'm real upset over it. I'm a widow, and I purchased the property because of the crime rate in the area and the traffic. And I live alone, and that was a great concern. This is the reason why I oppose Bill 301. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council, my name is Ken Renner. I live at 905 Kingfisher Point here in Nashville, and I am a vice president at Vast Land Companies, which is the majority owner of these properties. I know that many of you work very hard, along with Mayor Dean's administration and the various city departments and agencies, to promote quality growth and development in this community. It's something that comes up all the time in community meetings, finding jobs, finding ways to develop it. The ordinance before you tonight, not to put too fine a point on it, really violates every rule that the Planning Commission and this council have established to promote the kind of orderly, planned, safe, sound growth and development that we've come to expect in this community. First of all, it violates the land use policies that were set out just 2 months ago in the new Antioch-Priest Lake Community Plan that was supported, I believe, by every member of this council who represents the Antioch and Priest Lake area. That plan, in the plan itself, recommends that this property be developed as a 4-story multifamily site. Second, the bill violates the professional recommendations of the Planning Commission staff and the Planning Commission, which voted unanimously just last month that this site should continue to be developed as a 4-story multifamily site, or that the bill should be disapproved. Now, I think someone who testified before I have mentioned that this is a 30-year-old PUD. Yes, it is. But this has been reviewed once again by the professional staff of the Planning Commission and recommended to be continued to be developed as it stands with changes in the PUD just 2 weeks ago. Finally, worst of all, this ordinance violates the rules that apply to every other PUD in this community. It was brought before the Planning Commission, unlike any other PUD revision, without any site plan, without any technical data, without any stormwater plan, without any plan of how it would meet traffic or anything else. Only time this has ever happened. In that case, none of that was done. None of this was ever submitted to the city's departments and agencies for their review. In our professional judgment, and I believe in the judgment of the Planning Commission, this project can't be built as this ordinance would require that it be built. You cannot build 2-story townhome developments and still maintain the density that we are entitled to on this property and meet the other requirements of the city of Nashville. For that reason, we would ask that you vote against this ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tamara Sinabaldi. I live at 152 Braxton Park Lane in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. I'm the sales and marketing manager and the principal broker for Marquee Homes. The company where I work has been involved in Nashboro Village for many years and has built nearly 150 owner-occupied townhomes. This company has invested vast amounts of capital and has created a wonderfully vibrant community that positively impacts the surrounding area. Over the last several years, the market demand for housing in all of our metropolitan area has been depressed due to the recession, which curtailed building speculatively for not only ourselves, but for all the builders in our region. Over the last 15 months, however, market demand has strengthened and continues to grow stronger month after month. Given this steady progress, we feel that there is now a demand for this type of housing in this area. As the current development plan has already been affirmed 3 times by the Metro Planning Commission, I ask that you vote no on BL 2012-301. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Drew Charney. I work with CBRE, and I live at 106 Abbey Road in Lebanon, Tennessee. About 3 years ago, I relocated to Middle Tennessee from a very depressed area in Metro Detroit, and part of the reason I moved here was because of the economic growth, the development, and all the factors that have made Tennessee a destination for a lot of businesses, business professionals, and for companies like Vaslin and other developers around the country who are giving to the community, putting dollars into the community so that the community can take those dollars back out over time. The law at hand, or the ordinance at hand, actually poses a major threat to the livelihood of not only the developer, but folks like myself. It creates a precedence that can be looked upon in future development situations that is somewhat of a Pandora's box. If you start to mandate people's rights with what they can do with their property, whether it's been through a PUD process or not, if it's zoned and ready to go, you're now allowing that question to seep into future processes that will allow properties to be taken down from their existing zoning rights and classifications or PUD classifications to a much lower level. And in doing so, you're not only impacting the investors or the developers' ability to create a return with what they're doing, but you're driving down property values and in turn property taxes. You're impairing businesses from growing. You are scaring away investors from coming to this community or to any of the surrounding communities, and you're creating potential for free fall in development overall. While I understand the desire to have consistency in a neighborhood and to have character carry forward, I've really got to point out that, taking away somebody's rights just really isn't constitutional. And in this situation, it's not just unconstitutional, but it's potentially harming the overall growth and longevity for positive economic influences in this region and in this market specifically. For that reason, and for my own livelihood, I'm proposing that everybody vote against this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, I'm Roy Dale. I reside at 1657 Stokely Lane. I'm the CEO and owner of Dell & Associates Incorporated, an engineering company that's been in business for 30 years. And we represent a lot of property owners, a lot of developers, a lot of businesses, people that live here in Nashville, and investors outside of the city of Nashville that rely on this government to ensure that the properties that they have that are zoned for certain uses, that they can utilize those at some point in time. We all have been through, we know we've been through a recession. We're coming out of one. The city of Nashville has pretty well survived this fairly well, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are friendly to businesses and we listen to businesses, and we are more or less a property rights city. And what concerns me and concerns some of my clients who actually called me is what's happening here. I believe in 2007 when the legislation was passed to be able to look at active and inactive projects, it was really geared towards specific plans. It wasn't necessarily geared toward planned unit developments. It's my understanding that this is just brought before the Planning Commission at the request of a council member. There are probably hundreds of PUDs out there right now today that haven't been built. They would all be considered inactive. There are a lot of SPs. There's lots of zoning throughout the county right now that are inactive just based upon what we've been through. But I can tell you as an engineer, things are changing in this city. We're starting to get calls from people that are interested in developing again. I have a meeting with a gentleman from Texas tomorrow that wants to come back to Middle Tennessee to build hundreds of homes. So there's a lot of positive energy that's going on here, and I'm afraid that if you were to pass a bill like this, it sends a very, very negative message that an investor in property who owns a piece of land that has a guaranteed particular right would lose some of that. So I would listen to the Planning Commission staff on this. The Planning Commission is basically saying that if you approve this bill as presented today, it's contrary to the character and the use of that area. Keeping the plan that's in place right now is consistent with the character. So I would certainly support you to disapprove this bill as it's submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Johnson.
I would like to move Bill 301 without amendments.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. We'll do a machine vote. Mm-hmm. Right. Has everyone voted? Thank you. Madam Clerk. Try that again.
28 aye, 8 no, 1 abstention.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is BL 2012-302, amends 3.46 acres of the Nashville Village Plan Unit Development Overlay District for property located at Nashville Boulevard unnumbered at the southeast corner of Nashville Boulevard and Flint Rock Court, zoned R10 to permit neighborhood retail uses not to exceed 1 story. Councilmember Johnson.
I would like to defer this to the January 8th public hearing, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-303 amends 1.7 acres of the Nashville Village Plan Unit Development Overlay District for property located at Nashville Boulevard unnumbered at the east of Murfreesboro Pike, zoned RM6, to add conditions applicable to daycare facility use already approved for the property. Councilmember Johnson.
I'd like to move for approval with the, I'm sorry. I would like to open the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in support wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Johnson.
I'd like to move approval with amendments.
No amendments on second reading, that would be on third reading.
Just move approval right now.
Right, move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
BL 2012-306 amends 2.34 acres of the Stammer Park SP for properties located at 2121 and 2123 Hobbs Road and 4213, 4215, 4217, 4219, 4221, 4223, 4225, 4227, and 4227B Stammer Place to permit detached units. Councilmember Todd.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to open the public hearing.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing none on either side, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Todd.
Thank you. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-307 changes 6 acres from RS-15 to AR-2A zoning for property located at 931 Old Lebanon Dirt Road. Councilmember Glover.
Public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing none on either side, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-308 changes 0.25 acres from R8 to RS5 zoning for property located at 906 Ackland Avenue. Councilmember Moore.
I move to open the public hearing.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing none on either side, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Moore.
Move for approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Please come up and Madison.
BL 2012-309 changes 0.24 acres from MUL to SP zoning for property located at 100 Iris Avenue to permit all uses of the MUL zoning district and new and used tire sales. Councilmember Jernigan.
Open public hearing?
We'll see the slides first.
Okay.
This is Council Bill 2012-309. It's a request to rezone from MUL to specific plan zoning for property located at 100 Iris Avenue to permit the sale of new and used tires and all uses of the MUL zoning district, and the Planning Commission recommended disapproval. The current zoning is mixed use limited, which allows a range of commercial, residential, and office uses. The proposed zoning is specific plan, which will allow all the uses of the MUL district, and in addition to tire sales, used tire sales. The land use policy is suburban mixed-use corridor, which is intended to enhance suburban mixed-use corridors by encouraging a greater mix of residential and mixed-use developments. This is the proposed site plan. The Planning Commission determined that the land use policy does not support the sale and outdoor display of used tires, and the Planning Commission recommended disapproval.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Anyone in support wish to speak, please line up at the lectern.
It's my people. It's my people.
My name is Marion Wilson. I have a business at 102 22nd Street there in Lakewood. I'm a dentist. My father and I have the oldest business in Lakewood. the Lakewood community. It's nice to be able to say community instead of city. I was chairman of the group of Citizens Reform Lakewood, and as for a whole lot of us, we are pleased that we now belong to Metro Nashville. So thanks for the improvements that we are already seeing. I support the bill that Darren presented to have this rezoned so they can sell new and used tires. We had a community meeting about this. Darren called it at the school, and the majority of the people there were in favor of this business being allowed to stay. For a month, I've asked patients that live in Lakewood that came into my office what they thought about the tire store in Lakewood. Not a single one of them even knew it was there. They have put the tires where they can't be seen. They've cleaned it up. They've done what was asked of them as far as borders and fences and barriers. I asked them what they thought about people wanting to put them out of business, and they were flabbergasted. All of them. I have two concerns. One is it appears that a lot of the opposition to this is coming from the Old Hickory Chamber of Commerce. It also appears that they went behind Darren when he got some approval from a planning commission, but they went behind him and had the planning commission to take this, to disapprove this. It's disturbing to me that a pro-business organization would not be willing to work with a business in order to stay in business. Being a dentist in Lakewood for 29 years, I know the demographics as well as anyone. There is a need for this business. There are a whole lot of folks living in our community that cannot afford a new set of tires. This business provides a local option when it comes to replacing and repairing tires. I urge you to support this zoning change to allow roving tires to operate at their present location. And for the record, I have signatures, 62 signatures. I have pictures where they have improved it, where the tires are hidden. They've done what has been asked of them to do. I'd like to put that in the record. Also, I went to the business personally. I've talked to the owner, the employees. I even went into the building to see the tires. I did this to make sure I was supporting something worth coming before you tonight, and I think they are. Thank you. I ask you to support this.
Thank you.
I'm David Corley. I live at 110 MacArthur Drive in Lakewood, Tennessee, 37138. I come to the council tonight and beg you to approve this bill for Mr. Jernigan and the tire store owner. The people that oppose this are the people that half of them are from Lakewood City, and they're still trying to keep Lakewood in check, which Lakewood's out, and we need to move on with the Metro government, and I appreciate your vote. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Stokely. I live at 500 Bridgeway Avenue in Old Hickory, and I ask you to support this and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Camille Edwards. I live at 2210 Lakeshore Drive, Old Hickory, and it's in the community of Lakewood. I do support the change of MUL to MULSP. Councilman Jernigan had a public hearing, and there were approximately 20 folks that showed up. There were 3 or 4 that were opposed to the rezoning. One of the people that oppose this, Councilman Jernigan asked this person, is there anything that we can do as a compromise for you to accept this? And they said, no, absolutely not. I have to question the Old Hickory Chamber of Commerce's intention of getting involved in a rezoning issue for a company that just wants to sell tires. I've driven by there, I've stopped and asked folks, what do you think about the new tire store? What new tire store? It sits at a cross street of Iris Avenue and State Route 45. unless you're looking for it, you're not even going to see it. It's neat. It's neatly done. I ask that you please vote yes for this bill of Councilman Jernigan's. It's 2012-309. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition wishing to speak, please come to the lectern and state your name and address.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor, members of council. My name is William Guthrell. I live at 5144 South Fork Boulevard in Old Hickory. I'm here tonight to speak in opposition to this bill for two reasons. First, as a resident and homeowner in Old Hickory, I support and encourage economic growth, which will make our community viable and valuable. Currently, there are a combined total of 10 used car lots and auto repair facilities within the 7/10 of a mile stretch along Old Hickory Boulevard, which this proposed zoning change falls in, and I do not believe that adding an 11th is what's appropriate for growth and improvement of this area. The business, which has been in operation since earlier this year, currently displays tires and stacks along the front of the property, as well as performs vehicle maintenance services in a surface lot adjacent to Old Hickory Boulevard, both of which will be allowed by the proposed SP. In addition, on numerous instances, the business has also stored an abundance of tires by stacking them along the entrance to the building or along the rear of the parking area, which is not outlined or permitted by the SP. The overall operation of this business creates an unappealing and uninviting appearance for the community and surrounding businesses. Secondly, the manner in which this particular business has operated shows its disregard for the laws of our city, as well as the consideration of our community by opening and operating against current zoning laws. To date, the business has failed on numerous occasions to even operate within the guidelines of the proposed SP by storing and displaying tires in excess of what has been outlined. The continued operation of this business in violation of current zoning laws, as well as a failure to comply with the proposed SP, removes my faith that the business will operate in accordance with any laws and restrictions imposed by this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Kathy McKellar, Vice President of the Old Hickory Chamber of Commerce. I live at 112 28th Street in the Old Hickory area. Madam Vice Mayor and members of the council, I speak tonight on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Old Hickory Chamber of Commerce and its 100-plus members, a group that is concerned with enhancing the economic well-being of the 37138 zip code. We are a group that's working very diligently to bring good and viable businesses to our region, and we want to see the livability and quality of our life in our area improved. Yet we come tonight speaking against Bill number 2012309, asking for the rezoning of the property at 100 Iris Drive. There are three major reasons for our position on this issue. The property is being rezoned to accommodate a business that opened and is operating out of compliance with the current zoning ordinance. While we understand that there is a disagreement between the business and property owner regarding the responsibility for providing accurate information about what was allowed under current zoning, we believe that rezoning a business into compliance after the fact is a bad precedent and that it undermines the power of the current laws to regulate property, and that it provides no incentive for a business to do the proper research before locating a business in a particular area. It also dishonors those businesses, including our members, who have spent time, energy, and resources and legislation to ensure that they comply with the law prior to construction and operation. Given the inability of the business owner to comply with these existing laws and regulations, we have less confidence in their ability to comply with the provisions of the specific plan, leading to further issues in the future. Finally, as an organization concerned with the future development of the region and the Old Hickory Boulevard corridor, we know that our area already has a significant number of these businesses, and there is not a desire among local residents and many of our business owners for another used tire store. Our ability to attract businesses and improve the region is determined in part by the type of existing businesses that are already located there.
and we believe another business of this type makes it more difficult in recruiting more attractive businesses. In closing, we wish to note that the Planning Commission has agreed with our assessment of this project, voting unanimously for disapproval. We ask simply that you uphold the previously adopted standard of Metro-Davidson County government, and we respectfully request that you deny this proposal. Thank you.
Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Jernigan.
I move approval with some brief comments.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman?
Okay, this came before me, and I did have a meeting, and it was probably 35 or 40 folks. And I understood what was going on, where the landlord erroneously allowed a business to come in when it didn't meet the zoning, and we tried to work out some compromises to allow this. And when we were there, we tried to create an SP to put some restrictions that would please the majority of the group there, and we did. There's very strong restrictions, and with these restrictions, planning staff agreed with me and co-sponsored the bill and took it up there to the Planning Commission. So I really didn't think there was going to be a problem until folks showed up to the Planning Commission. And I'm sorry that staff can't speak on their own, but they have to represent the commission. And I get that, but I wasn't going to punish this business for something that the landlord made an error in, because I drive by there, it's clean. They are meeting the approvals when I drive by there. It's nice. They only put new tires out for retail out, and they're limited on what they can do. I'll probably put too much restrictions on them. I hope they can stay in business with that. But they agreed to it, and it was a compromise that I thought was fair. I'm sorry that the commission disapproved, but at a time when these people are creating jobs, and it's a business that they put a lot of money into, and I don't want to punish them for something that the owner did. And it's something that I could remedy, I thought, fairly, with constrictions, with an SP that would not harm the community. And that was my thoughts in the matter. So I'd ask for your approval. Thank you.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. For the record, I'd like to correct a couple of statements that were made during a public hearing relative to the Planning Commission. As your representative on the Planning Commission, I can assure you that there was no collaboration between the members of the Commission and the Old Hickory Chamber of Commerce. There was no effort made to circumvent or to go to behind the councilman. When the bill came on the agenda, there were people that showed up at the commission and requested to speak, which is their prerogative to do so. And the fact that the council member was not there at the time, is a risk that he took by not coming. But there was absolutely no collaboration with the Planning Commission and the Chamber of Commerce, and there was no intended effort to circumvent the intent of the sponsor of the bill. And so, just for the record, I'd like to make that clear.
Councilmember Tigert.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I'd like to request our legal counsel to, my major question is, and this has come up before, how did the the business owner obtain a business license at this location if that use was not permitted? So I thought I would just request that we do some research so that when this comes before us in a couple of weeks, we'd have a better feel for how these continue to fall through the cracks.
Well, under state law, business licenses can be issued regardless of zoning. Now, whether there should be some more communication between the county clerk's office and planning when they issue business licenses is something that the county clerk can work with planning to see if that's something that needs to be done, but there's no legal requirement that they check zoning before issuing a business license.
Can this body require that?
No, that's a state law issue.
Can this body require better disclosure to potential business owners that you better check and be absolutely certain about the zoning? In other words, big block letters that before you come and ask this, it would seem to me that some of these problems would go away if we were a little bit more careful
that's something that we can look into and explore.
Councilmember Jernigan.
Thank you. Just to address Councilman Claiborne's comment, I would go on the record as saying I do not believe there was any collaboration at all. I just don't think that. The reason I wasn't there is how many times do we all go down there when the planning staff co-sponsors your bill? I mean, we seem to think that's pretty much going to be a given, but I didn't realize that there was concerns. So anyway, can I move approval?
You've got a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-310 changes 4.31 acres from R10 to RS10 to SP zoning for properties located at 1719 and 1725 Glen Echo Road and at Glen Echo Road unnumbered east of Hillmont Drive to permit up to 15 single-family lots. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd move to open the public hearing.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in support wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would move approval with a brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have communicated with the developer, and I know they've been in communication with some in the neighborhood, but just wanted to reiterate that I hope that there are a couple issues that I think weren't addressed in public hearing tonight, but I think that we can hopefully address those, and I won't move passage until those are addressed. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-311 changes .27 acres from RS10 to SP zoning for property located at 2901 Tugwell Avenue to permit a single-family residential unit and our general office uses. Councilmember Tenpenny.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I open the public hearing.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in support wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Tenpenny.
I'd move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-312 amends the Metro Code to add automobile convenience as a use permitted with conditions in the IWD, IR, and IG zoning districts. Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Open the public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing none on either side, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Claiborne.
I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-313 amends the Metro Code to require construction, application, and enforcement of the zoning code in accordance with federal law. Councilmember Claiborne.
Open the public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing none on either side, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Claiborne.
Move for approval.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're going back to BL 2012-291. Amends the definition of recycling facility to clarify that it does not include the conversion of material into a fuel product or asphalt, and to prohibit such activity on construction, demolition, landfill property. Councilmember Claiborne.
Open the public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Anyone in support wishing to speak, please come to the lectern. Please state your name and address.
Thank you very much. My name is Cheryl Umberger. I live at 3261 Riverwalk Drive in 37214. I'm here on behalf of the Homeowners Association of the River's Edge Subdivision, and we are in support of Bill number 2012-291. We live adjacent to the Greenway and directly across from what we have come to call Trash Mountain. I've lived there for when my home was built in 1999, and we watched as the C&D landfill, which was just, across the river, grew and grew and grew and grew and grew and grew some more. Now, the majority of the time, that landfill is uncovered. I have called on numerous occasions to check on the regulations for how often the land must be turned. And when the leaves are not on the trees, it is Trash Mountain. And that is directly across from the Greenway that we built to improve the quality of life in Davidson County. This particular bill, however, deals with a new process that is used to recycle shingles, which I understand from the research I've done is an incredibly large problem. But to recycle those shingles through incineration, it is a very volatile process. It is not neighbor-friendly, and the population of this area, I believe, was too residential at the time that the C&D landfill was approved the first time. It certainly is too residential now. We have been waiting very patiently for this landfill to get full so that we were no longer directly across from something that is an eyesore at best. We urge you, please, to support this bill. It is a tremendously large quality of life issue. I also believe it is a public safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel Dawson. I live at 3245 Riverwalk Drive in Nashville. And I just simply want to say this. The mantle of responsibility has been given to all of you to be good stewards of the monies that have been given you to take care of our city. There's a tremendous amount of money spent on that Greenway, and it's beautiful. It is a wonderful place to walk and to enjoy with your family and friends. I would say this, this sort of facility that we're speaking about would create an incredible odor. I remember when I was in first grade, they repaved our playground. The biggest thing I can remember from first grade is that odor. It's not my friends, it's not my teachers, it's that scent. I would hate for people to go to that Greenway and to walk away with the odor of this facility and say, that's what I come away and that's what I remember about that. So please, please do your responsibility, take care of the monies and take care of the Greenway, and please support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl Frankel, 3237 Riverwalk Drive. In addition, thank you for your time, council members. In addition to the remarks you've heard so far, I'd ask you to consider who all is going to be impacted roughly at a 1-mile radius around this facility. In addition to our housing development, Riverwalk Drive, there's Polo Park Apartments, which is another large development. Councilmember Stanley earlier this evening during the announcements for a public meeting named half a dozen or more condominium townhome housing developments on the Central Pike Corridor. In addition, there's the Jackson Downs Shopping Center, which contains a fairly large Target as an anchor, and I can't imagine, but if the odor becomes onerous enough that people might stop, or business there would fall off. There's the Hermitage Donaldson YMCA down the street. There's the Law Enforcement Training Academy, where many of those who serve the public good go for their training and train outdoors. So apart from my immediate concern living across the river from this and the impact it would have on the health of my family and the health of my neighbors, within a 1-mile radius, there are many, many people businesses who may well be adversely affected, please vote in support of the present bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Skinner. I live at 3237 Riverwalk Drive in Nashville, 37214. And there isn't much that I need to add to what my neighbors have eloquently mentioned already. And I do want to say that my house is directly across the Stones River from the C&D landfill. Look out any of my back windows and you have a direct shot. My neighbors and I live across from the landfill. The only thing separating us from the landfill is the Stones River. We also live along the Greenway, which is divided from the landfill only by the Stones River. If Mr. Binkley were to add to his facility this new recycling effort, it not only would create noxious odors, but it would pose a strong possible threat to my family of 5, youngest member of whom is 7, to our neighbors, which comprise young families, elderly people, active people who love to be outdoors, who love to be on the Greenway, and the broader community in Donaldson. So I urge you to vote in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Skinner Orgeron, and I also live at 3237 Riverwalk Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37214. And I don't think there's much that I have to add, but it concerns me that if this bill is not passed, then the recycling process that would be allowed could pose a health risk to my entire neighborhood and a serious environmental risk to the atmosphere in the area and the Stones River as well. So I ask that you support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, my name's Graham Reed. I live at 787 Old Lebanon Dirt Road in Hermitage. Since I first heard of this project, I've done quite a lot of research into this operation of recycling of roof shingles. This is not good for this city. I'm a contractor myself, and I know what roof shingles do. This is an operation that needs to be in the middle of a desert. Actually, there is one in Arizona where this first started. And a couple of months ago, this operation is so volatile, one of the workers in this operation in Arizona, so I was told, just got burnt to death by it. It is dangerous and environmentally unsafe. The operation borders the Stones River. On the other side of the river, as you heard, there are these beautiful homes. The finished material of this has a putrid smell and is very volatile. I happen to have a sample of the finished material. This is a very small sample. If you would like to pass this around, do not open it, just wave it around and you will just see this is next to nothing of it. I produced this material. Do not open it at all, please. It's worse than any smelling salts you ever smelt. If this ever got loose, it would be terrible. Anyway, I have demonstrated this to senior codes people, and we set fire to it, just put lit the side of it with a piece of paper, and this was so volatile it was horrible. Anyway, I've demonstrated this sample, as you see, and I've also had a meeting with the assistant fire chief, and he said an operation of this kind of thing should never take place. If this material was to catch fire with these shingles, this would be the largest fire Nashville has ever seen. It would erupt into a huge, huge fire, which would be very difficult to put out. As you see, I have a small sample of it there, of the finished material, and as I would like to say, I would ask the council to please support this bill. This is something we do not need. It's horrible. Thank you very much. If you'd like me to dump that when you've had a look, I just need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition wishing to speak, please come to the lectern.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I'm Roy Dale. I reside at 1657 Stokely Lane, and I actually have an environmental nonprofit, Earth Credits, that I've been working on for 5 years. Mostly what we do is restore floodplains to sort of deal with climate change. We decided that the best way to do that is to put money into prevention of damaging houses or future residents. But we also are supporters of recycling. I was at the Planning Commission when this was heard before the Planning Commission, and Public Works was present at that meeting. And they highly opposed this bill. And they opposed it mainly because they felt like that the zoning code already pretty much covers recycling. And it's very obvious that this bill was more or less put together with one property owner in mind and residents that simply don't like a demolition facility. And that's not the reason you pass legislation. If this legislation passes, it affects the whole county. I think it's important for the council to know, I'm going to read something from the zoning code that tells you, it's a definition of recycling facility. Recycling facility means a facility other than a facility open to the public to receive household waste and recyclable material where any method, technique, or process is utilized to separate, process, modify, treat, convert, or otherwise prepare non-producible waste so that the components of the substances may be used, reused, or sold to third parties for such purposes. The reason the zoning code reads like it is because there's so much technology out there. It's changing every day. And so if someone comes to codes and basically says, here's a method that we want to separate, what codes does is they look at it. They evaluate it, and they look at the performance standards. Does it meet noise requirements? Does it meet emission requirements? Does it meet polluted requirements? And then they determine what zoning districts this particular facility would be allowed in. They've already looked at Bruce Stanley's district. They've already looked at this demolition facility, and they've said, you can't incinerate. So there's really no need for this bill at all. Incineration itself, there's not even a definition in the Metro Code for incineration. That's another reason that Public Works was very uncomfortable with this. Could that mean that if you use heat at all in any process, that could be interpreted as incineration? Some people could argue that it could be. So this zoning code revision is simply not necessary. The property that the people have concerns about, codes has already determined, and I think you'll see that incineration is not allowed there. This was disapproved by planning, and we would hope that the council would disapprove it as well. I sat next to Councilman Stanley for 4 years. I understand his situation. I wish he was here. I think he should be here to hear this testimony, and I would even ask the council to not close the public hearing, but probably to allow it to continue to our next meeting, or in January. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, member of the council, my name is John Binkley. I live at 3012 Delaney Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37214. I work at the C&D landfill that Ms. Scott Services operates. I empathize with the folks' concerns at our landfill, but I'd like to remind everyone that we are a permitted facility. We're a very needed facility for Davidson County. We're permitted by the state of Tennessee. We're permitted by Metro Davidson County. There are guidelines that we do have to follow. To reiterate some of the points that Roy Dale made, we don't want to do anything that would damage our community. and cause concern for anybody in our community, our neighbors. We are especially concerned about our neighbors and the Greenway. My family are big supporters of the Greenway. My wife, in fact, is involved with the garden club at Stone Hall, and we're really trying to get that off the ground right now. So we're very empathetic with the people of our neighbors there, that we don't do anything to jeopardize their quality of life or anybody else's in our neighborhood. I live there. I'm a Davidson County resident. We're trying to continue our stewardship of the property there. Currently, we have multiple recycling operations going on that are very beneficial to the city of Nashville. We recycle in excess of about 12,000 tons a year right now of scrap metal. We recycle somewhere in the neighborhood of about 24,000 cubic yards of wood waste right now. Right now, the last count on our cardboard, we're trying to start our cardboard recycling operation. We're up to about 1,000 tons this year that we've recycled. With what's going on right now in the waste stream, we're trying to do the right thing with the waste stream that's coming to our facility. Now, this text amendment, I don't know how it's our council person that's representing us in the 14th District is trying to apply this to us, but in no way would we ever incinerate at our property. We are trying to move Nashville into the future at our facility there, and by virtue of doing that, we've invested $1,200,000 in a solar farm on top of a finished portion of our landfill. And our plan is to take the energy that we're creating from that solar array to offset the energy that we're going to be using in our recycling, especially our scrap metal recycling operation that's already going on right now, and it's been tremendously successful, and a lot of the folks in the community are taking advantage of it. So I just think that this would probably stop any type of recycling in the area of the roofing shingles. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
My name is Odell R. Binkley. I'm at 608 Jefferson Drive, Mount Juliet, Tennessee, 37122. I am not a Davidson County resident. I am the operations manager at the C&D landfill. I just want to bring up to one point that some of the opposition to this bill, Mr. Graham Reed brought you a sample that was putrid and stinked. He did not get that sample from anybody at our location. He got that sample from David Donaldson and Dwight Holland, who is in environmental court tomorrow morning at 1 o'clock, excuse me, tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock for violating codes rules. That's where he got that putrid sample. He did not receive that sample from us. He did not receive that sample from Arizona or any process that we use or plan to use on recycling the shingles. He got that from Dwight Holland and David Donaldson, who are going to be in environmental court tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Given the circumstances of tonight, I would like to give the sponsor of the bill an opportunity to view the comments that have been made pro and con during the public hearing tonight and move to defer the bill for one meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Allen.
Point of order again. Would we want to hold this from going to committee as well, or go ahead and let the committee process happen so that discussion could happen?
I would amend that motion to defer the bill one meeting and allow it to go before the committees for discussion, yes.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Glover.
Obviously, Councilman Stanley's not here. He and I have been talking about this because a number of people in my district have concerns about the issue. I've expressed wanting to hold a public meeting. Obviously, we're at Christmas. That won't be possible until the first of the year. Mr. Cooper, I think there's still some questions as far as what is allowed, what's not allowed. I know you and I have been speaking about this as well, not to put you on the spot, but I think there's some unanswered questions. I don't know about going to committee, and it's irrelevant. If it does, that's fine. I just really would like the opportunity for my district, since we are adjacent to this particular area, to have the opportunity to have input to where we can come back in January and provide some feedback as well. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I would amend my motion to defer the bill to the second meeting in January and allow it to come before the committee for discussion in the meantime.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilman Todd, did you want to be recognized?
Yes, Councilman McGuire.
Councilman McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Pardon the interruption, but we are joined tonight by some very special young gentlemen who are here from Troop 121, located in the Fighting District 25, out of Woodmont Baptist Church. They're working on their Communication Merit Badge this evening, so I would ask that the council please recognize these young gentlemen for their fine service.
We're now at our resolutions. On our consent agenda, we have RS 2012-504 through RS 2012-515. I will read those, and then you can tell me if any need to be pulled. 504 approves an annual grant from the Tennessee State Library and Archives to the Nashville Public Library to target library material to persons that have difficulty using the library and to the disadvantaged. 505 accepts a donation from the Nashville Downtown Partnership to the Metro Planning Department to assist in the cost of a tax impact analysis for Nashville. 506 approves an amendment to an agreement between the Department of Public Works and Coca-Cola regarding a recycling promotional program called Recycle and Win for the purpose of renewing the term of the program. 507 approves an agreement between Metro Government and the Harpeth Valley Utility District to purchase drinking water in the event of an emergency or special need. 508 approves an amendment to a state grant for safety improvements at various intersections by the Metro Public Works. 509 approves a grant from the State Department of Transportation to the Department of Public Works for the resurfacing of 1.114 miles of Spence Lane. 510 approves a contract between the State Department of Transportation and the Department of Public Works for the resurfacing of 1.885 miles of Elm Hill Pike. 511 approves an annual grant from the State Department of Transportation to the Metro Nashville Police Department for the continuation of an enhanced DUI enforcement initiative. 512 approves the waiver of pensions benefit overpayments to Randy Muir. 513 authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the claims of Jeanette Porter against Metro Government in the amount of $37,500. 514 authorizes the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the property damage claim of Bell South Telecommunications, Inc. against Metro Government in the amount of $80,000. RS 2012-515 approves the election of notaries public for Davidson County. Does anyone wish to pull any of these? Seeing none, I need committee reports. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance approved 504, 940 against, and approved 505, 506, 507, 508, 509, 510, 511, 512, 513, 514, 1140 against.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Parks, Library, and Recreation approved Bill 504, 4 and 0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Banks.
Personnel Committee went 8 in favor, 0 opposed for Resolution 2012-512.
Thank you. Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning Zoning Historic approved 2012-505 by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you. Councilmember Bennett.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor, I can't even pronounce your name now. That's pretty bad. Public Safety approved 6-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Potts.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Works voted to approve RS 2012-506, 507, 508, 509, 510, and a vote 9-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Anthony Davis.
Thank you. Rules approved, RS 2012-515, 640 against, and I'd like to move approval of the consent agenda.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We will go back to RS 2012-488, approves an economic and community development incentive grant to the Industrial Development Board for the benefit of the HCA Holdings, Inc. and its affiliates. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you. Do I need a committee report?
No, it's all in.
Move for approval, please.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After the committee discussion a couple of weeks ago, there was something that came up that close watchers of Channel 3 may need a little clarification. John, this project is located within the TDZ. Can you explain the significance of that, please?
The TDZ, Tourism Development Zone, I think is what it's called, was created under state law, designated by the council and approved by the state to allow the incremental increase in sales tax above the base sales tax increase for the entire county to go towards the debt service on the convention center. So if the area within the tourism development zone generates more sales tax revenue than the county as a whole, then that increment can be used towards the debt service on the convention center.
Okay, so this
is the state sales tax money.
Oh, yeah, so this project, the incremental growth in sales tax attributed to this project and anything within the area goes to debt service on the convention center. Am I saying that right? Never mind, you said it fine. Okay, and Madam Chair, I have to be listed as an abstention. Thank you for clearing up the record, John.
Okay, so noted. Councilmember Stites.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I rise tonight in opposition to the bill, the resolution that's before us now. I think first, to give credit where credit is due, I think our economic community development team unfortunately does an exceptional job at what they've been tasked with doing. And so kudos to Matt Wiltshire and doing a great job. If he weren't good at his job, it would make my job easier. I think the irony of tonight is that 6 months ago, this body approved a tax increase. And we approved a tax increase on all property in Davidson County. And then 6 months later, this is brought before us and we are asked to waive property taxes for a company that had over $2 billion in net income last year. This really isn't a discussion about any particular company. It is a discussion about our policies and the policies that we as a council are going to support. It would be the decision makers of any corporation in Nashville would be derelict in their duty if they didn't pursue opportunities like this. But their obligation is to shareholders. Our obligation is to taxpayers. And I think it's a distinction that we need to not forget. With every deal that we do like this, it makes it harder for Nashville to achieve the two things that most companies say is the reason they move from Davidson County to Williamson County or any other place. One is our tax rate is too high. Two, our schools are not good enough. And with every one of these deals, it becomes just a little bit harder to fully fund our schools and a little bit harder to lower the tax rate for everybody so that all businesses are attracted to come to Nashville. I know that that a lot of my colleagues will say that that they don't like these deals any more than anyone else, but that they can do math, and that the math on the property tax will be higher after this is developed than it is right now. And so I welcome that debate. I think math is a great equalizer. Let's look at math. According to the most recent public figure available from the Secretary of State's office, Nashville has 8,900 for-profit entities located in Davidson County. 2 weeks ago, when we passed this on second reading, there was a spreadsheet on your desk that had all of the deals that we as a city are offering companies right now. And you'll see in the past 25 years, there's currently 12 deals that are still active. And this information is kind of vetted through the council office, so any inaccuracies, though, are mine. There's 12 companies, so out of 8,900 that we have in Nashville, we offer economic incentives to 12 of them. So the math on that is 0.13% of all companies in Nashville have access to taxpayer-funded incentives. The natural response is going to be, but these are our biggest employers. These guys are the ones that employ more people than anybody else. And that's true. The sum of all the jobs that have been created or retained is approximately 14,000. Our total workforce, according to the Chamber of Commerce study that was released 2 years ago, says that we have about 537,000 jobs in Nashville. So it's just over 2.5% of total jobs in Nashville are provided by these companies. These are great companies, but again, it's not a discussion about the companies, it's a discussion of our practice. I would ask that you vote against this because it's not fair for every business owner who works hard to beat out a living in the city. Thank you.
Councilmember Dow.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to be on record as an abstention, and I'll just limit my comments to that this time.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Scott Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to rise in support of this piece of legislation. Nashville-Davidson County has been waiting for an opportunity like this for a long time. We are the healthcare capital of the South. Thousands of minorities, women, and even small businesses have been looking for an opportunity to work with a company of this magnitude. And looking at my district and the jobs report that we all have seen, I'm in much need. My district and several other districts in the pocket of poverty are in need of these jobs. As looking at these reports, the jobs are going to average around $80,000 a year. The lowest person on the totem pole will be getting around $40,000 a year. Last time I looked, ladies and gentlemen, that's a living wage. And I want to commend the economic development team for a great job. I want to commend my colleague with his diligent homework on this, and you did a great job. And just like you, I want to work and help small businesses receive certain benefits like this. As a small business owner, I feel for them. But right now, we have a chance to make a deep impact in the jobless rate here in Nashville. And I just move and encourage everyone in this chamber to support this bill. Thank you, and I yield the rest of my time to the chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Very clearly, each of these packages must be considered on their own merit. And the bottom line here is there are more jobs over the life of this deal. There are more revenue for this county. It is much needed development of an important undeveloped piece of property in our community. And I admire the philosophy and consistency of my cohort behind me, but I would say there's one thing I would differ with him. I think it is very important who our partner is in this. And I think that as you look at the relationship of this company to this community and the measure of their dedication to this community since they were born in our town is one of the reasons that this particular arrangement is particularly important and particularly attractive to our community, and I urge everyone's support.
Councilmember Matthews.
Previous question.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of previous question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We need a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
34 aye, 1 no, and 2 abstentions.
Motion passes. Next is RS 2012-489. appropriates $1,050,000 in Capital Mall Urban Development Action Grant repayments for the benefit of the HCA Holdings, Inc. and its affiliates. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I didn't get to make my comments on the last bill, but I do move approval with the explanation.
Have a motion and a second. Councilmember.
Thank you. I would like to ask our Director of Finance, Mr. Rieber, could you heard some of the positive comments on the last bill. Could you also reiterate on this bill some of the highlights of it that's very important to the constituents of Nashville?
Sure, Council Lady. You know, this is part of the package that we have negotiated with the company to locate these facilities there in Midtown in your district, Council Lady Langster. You know, I think all has been said by many councilmen very well. This project will create jobs. It will create more revenue for the city than we're currently getting, and it will take an area of the city that's underdeveloped now and turn it into, I think, really one of the more important developed areas of the city. And so we think this is very important for the city's economic future, and appreciate the consideration the council is giving to this and the time and effort. And as needless to say, would hopefully strongly urge the council to adopt this and the other ordinance that accompanies it.
Thank you. Based on those strong comments, Vice Mayor, I move for approval, please.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Evans.
Just need to be recorded as an abstention.
Gotcha. Councilmember Dow.
Record me as an abstention, too.
We will need a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
34 aye, 1 no, 2 abstentions.
Thank you. We're now at bills on introduction and first reading. Are there any that need to be pulled for consideration? Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would ask to pull BL 2012-305.
Okay. Any others? BL 2012-305 is an ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metro Code, the zoning ordinance of Metro Government in Davidson County by amending the David Lipscomb Institutional Overlay District to make modifications to several buildings located within the existing overlay. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would move to have this bill heard at first reading in the first meeting in January to track with the February public hearing.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Is there a motion for approval of all other bills? Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on second reading. BL 2012-293 amends the Metro Code to require the Board of Fair Commissioners to issue a request for information to gauge interest from the private sector regarding the future operation of the fairgrounds property. Councilmember Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to defer this to the second meeting in January, or the first meeting in January, I'm sorry.
Could I have a committee report, please, from Councilmember Matthews?
We move to defer at the request of the sponsor, 11-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Pridemore.
We move to defer at the request of the sponsor to January the 8th of 3-4-0 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you. Councilmember Dominy.
And I move for the deferral to the January 8th council
We have
meeting.
a motion and a second for a deferral. Councilmember Moore.
Vice Mayor, I just want to be recorded as a no vote on this, please.
Okay. We don't need it. It's just, okay. Are there 5 people that want a machine vote? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next is BL 2012-314, provides a one-time early retirement incentive to employees of Metro Government eligible to retire as of February 28, 2013. Councilmember Banks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Need a committee report from Councilmember Matthews.
Budget and Finance approved 12-4, 0 against.
And a report from Personnel.
Personnel Committee approved 8 in favor, 0 opposed, and move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-315 amends the procurement non-discrimination provisions of the Metro Code to change the frequency of benchmarking. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Committee reports. Am I on the committee? Budget and Finance moved to defer 12-4, 0 against, and I'd like to move for a 1 meeting deferral.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor of deferral, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-316 authorizes the acquisition of easements for 7 properties located on Primrose Circle needed for a stormwater improvement project. Councilmember Allen.
Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, Historic voted to approve 8-0.
Councilmember Potts.
Public Works voted to approve 9-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Matthews.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 12-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Allen.
Move for approval.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Excuse me. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-317 abandons 135 feet of an 8-inch public sewer main with 1 manhole and accepts 150 feet of an 8-inch public sewer main with 3 manholes for property located at 113 Page Road. Councilmember Potts.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, Historic voted to approve 8-0.
Councilmember Potts.
Public Works voted to approve 9-4, 0 against, and I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-318 approves a lease agreement between Metro Government and the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency for property located at 302 Foster Street for the Metro Schools Community Career Center program. Councilmember Scott Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Moore.
Education Committee voted 7-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Matthews.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 12-4, 0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move for approval.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-319 approves a lease agreement between Metro Government and the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency for property located at 1433 Joe Johnston Avenue for the Metro Schools Community Career Center. Councilmember Matthews.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Moore.
Education Committee voted 7-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Matthews.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 12-4, 0 against, and I'd like to move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. Councilman Claiborne, you were not listed as needing to give a committee report from Planning and Zoning, but if you could, would you please give us one for 318 and 319?
I thought maybe I'd been bad.
You didn't make the list.
Actually, it's on my list.
It's not on this one.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic voted to approve both 318 and 319 by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, we had a motion and a second on 319. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2012-273. Changes 0.25 acres from RM 20 to ON zoning for property located at 1208 Hawkins Street. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historic voted to approve 8-0.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you. I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-289 amends the official street and alley acceptance and maintenance map by abandoning Johnston Court right-of-way. Councilmember Todd.
I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-294 amends the Metro Code to require certain sole source contracts to be approved by a resolution adopted by the Metro Council. Councilmember Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
They're all in.
They're all in. Thank you. I'll move approval of this bill with a brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second, Councilman.
And I need to point out we'll move approval as amended. The amendment was passed on second reading. There was some confusion from some of my colleagues about the nature of this bill. It started out as sometimes our legislation does, takes a long roundabout process to get there, sort of like watching sausage being made. We don't often want to see the process, we just want to smell it fine in the frying pan. But it started off dealing with amendment to Councilman Claiborne's bill, specifically targeting the Chamber of Commerce and their Partnership 2020 plan. My objective was not specifically targeted to them, but to bring accountability to our sole source contracting process. We've since amended the bill, wrote a new bill, which is what we're talking about today, that took out the reference to the Chamber of Commerce, so that I don't think it's appropriate to target a single individual, and that was at the request of some of my colleagues. And so that is the desire ultimately for me now, to bring accountability to our sole source contracting so that we have a very limited amount of oversight when we give out $250,000 to a contract for any individual or corporation without a bid process. And so I ask for my colleagues' support, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We need a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
18 aye, 15 no, 3 abstentions.
Motion passes. Fails, sorry. Next is BL 2012-295, amends the Metro Code pertaining to the egg handling and dispersal plan for the keeping of chickens on school property. Councilmember Tiger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the Metro Legal, School Department, and Health Department have worked out the issues relating to middle schools and the keeping of hens and the dispersal of eggs, this bill is no longer necessary, so I would move to withdraw it.
We have a motion and a second to withdraw. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2012-296, provides honorary distinction of Curtis Senior Lane for the 14th Avenue North between Jefferson Street and Scoville Avenues. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. With all committee reports in, I'd like to move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-297 authorizes the Industrial Development Board to negotiate and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes for the benefit of the West End Summit Development, LLC, and certain affiliates of HCA Holdings. Councilmember Matthews.
With all committee reports in, again, Madam Vice Mayor, I'd like to move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Stites.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. That last one was so close, I thought I'd give it a second try. We award approximately $6.8 million annually in government subsidies to companies. We're awarding $3 million to HCA when we start kicking in the latter years, the grants, it'll actually be more than 50% of our annual allotment. Per this report that we have from, and I'll be brief, from the Chamber, Nashville exceeds the national average in number of entrepreneurs and sole proprietorships. I've said all along that I don't like these deals. I think they're bad deals, but if we're going to do them, they, one, ought to be based upon jobs, in my view, and two, they ought to be available to everyone. And so my expectation is that after the first of the year, legislation will be presented that allows more people than just the well-connected to have opportunity and access to these jobs. I don't know what that's going to look like. There are certain members that have expressed a desire to work on that. Councilman Maynard and Tigard both have talked to me about that, and I would welcome anyone who has any ideas, whether on the council or not on the council, to make any suggestions on how we might structure a deal that makes these type of arrangements available to all people who are willing to make investments in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Evans.
I'm sorry. I need to be recorded as an abstention.
Okay. Councilmember Dow.
I would like to be recorded as an abstention too.
Thank you. We will need a machine vote. Has everyone voted? Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
34 aye, 1 no, 2 abstentions.
Motion passes. BL 2012-298 approves an agreement among the Public Defender's Office, Equal Justice Works, and the Southern Public Defender Training Center for the Public Defender's Corps Program. Councilmember Matthews.
With all committee reports in, I'd like to move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-299 approves the abandonment of two 15-foot easements on property located at 925 and 929 Otter Creek Road. Councilmember Todd.
Thank you. Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-300 approves the abandonment of easement rights of property located at 921 South Douglas Avenue. Councilmember Moore.
With all committee reports in, I move for approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no.
We adjourn.
Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn? See you all on Friday evening.